under construction might just be the kind of innocuous target. You know what that means? That means harmless.
Huh?
Might just be the kind of harmless target that the Federal Bureau of Imperialism might be willing to sacrifice in order to get somebody deep in the movement.
You think I'm a snitch?
Oh no, you don't have any tattoos. You rubbing that head like you don't think that head can be bad.
You think I'm a snitch because I rub my head?
I mean, you understand where I'm coming from, right? When you come out here from Oklahoma full of piss and vinegar, talk about how you were tired of spray paint the synagogue, saying you want to blow this shit up.
Hey! You don't believe me? You check it out. Why don't you call Oklahoma?
Whoever's doing this,
See, boy, that ain't a snitch.
yeah, well, like you said, we'll see.
Right there. Hey, turn that shit off. Hey, how'd it go?
Probably was a waste of time, but took care of the secondary this time.
Where you at?
75 on Tate's Creek Road.
Oh, hey. Call from Oklahoma. Jared checks out.
Oh, I had to let Jared go.
Oh. Was it because you didn't trust him or you just didn't like him?
Probably a little bit of both. I am gonna need you to pick me up, though.
I will show that my client is not engaged in fraud. Report by forensic accountants. Any anomalies have been entirely to the business.
Welcome back, welcome back. It is a glorious Monday, and I hope your day's treating you well. We got a lot of stuff to jump into. You know me, I'm just going to get right into it. I predicted when the war in Iran first started, I predicted that it was going to be 2 weeks, and my timer on that ran out obviously today. And we're going now into the third week. Now, at the beginning of the Iran war, the president and Pete Hegseth, the secretary of the War Department, they stated that it was going to be 4 to 5 weeks. But that was they were not prepared by how well it went in the first 3 days. Remember, we took out the supreme leader, we took out most of his leadership, and then the secondary leadership we took out. And so that was built into the 4 to 5 weeks. The reason why I said it was going to be 2 weeks is because at the rate that the United States was going on the targeting, combined with the rate of depletion of their military assets, to me, it seemed 2 weeks was about the time it would take for United States and Israel to completely wipe out Iran's ability to fight back. And it's true. We have basically done that. But what I realize now is Iran has to be the regime in Iran has to be completely wiped out to a man. As far as the leadership goes, they have to wipe everybody out because what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a facade or the appearance that this is a war of attrition. So let me back up. Iran has no military capability whatsoever. The only way that they can fight back, okay, is through psychological terrorism. That's propaganda. That is using what small amount of arms they have to hit ships in the Strait of Hormuz to appear as if they have some kind of leverage still in the strait. That's to try to get as much airtime on the UK and in the United States Western civilization's airwaves to promote their propaganda. And also, what they're trying to do is be defiant, right? They're going to be defiant. And listen, Trump's position on unconditional surrender is the correct one. It is. You have to break the will completely of these people, or they will never stop. And that's because they're radical, religious, theocratic leaders, right? And the only way to break that is you either have to basically separate them from the religion, which isn't happening, or you have to decimate them so much to the point where they give up. The problem is that these Islamists are radical to the point of dying or killing themselves for their religion. In their view, means that they receive paradise. It is an inversion of good. They're calling evil good and good evil, right? It's an inversion. And that's why you have suicide bombers. Suicide is never good. Killing people is never good. But in their religion, it's a good thing because they're killing, quote unquote, the infidel, right? And their understanding. And so the gamble is, will military efforts be enough to break the will of this regime? I would say yes, but it's going to take time, it's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to take people dying almost to a man. And so the question is does Trump have enough time to do that? Right? Because I think there is a miscalculation here, and it's a miscalculation out of ignorance, and it's also a miscalculation out of it's a Western versus Eastern thing that Westerners, it's funny. No matter what president, Nixon with China, Obama with Putin, Trump with Iran. You pick the president, Bush in Iraq. They've all miscalculated because they do not know or understand their enemy. They think that their enemy thinks like them or is like them, and they're not, because they're not pragmatists. Now there is I'm sorry, you guys probably hear the thunder in the background outside my window. The problem is that with Iran, there is a pragmatist side, which is the president of Iran, who runs like the administrative arm of Iran. But then there's the religious and religiosity side, which is the supreme leader, right? And the supreme leader, though, has ultimate authority, and the president reports to the supreme leader. So the problem that you have is you're trying to calculate on a pragmatist scale, right? That's why the president apologized to the Gulf state. He was being pragmatic. He didn't want the Gulf states to enter into the war against Iran completely, and because they're already isolated. If all the Gulf states decided to turn on Iran, that's it. That was the point of the apology. He was a pragmatist. He understood what was going on. Whereas the religious side, they believe their God is going to save them, and their God is going to do X, Y, and Z, and so their God is whatever. It's not that they're not thinking irrationally. They're thinking rationally. They just have a different starting point and a different conclusion. The pragmatist sees the reality of what's on the ground, what's happening. The religion side is seeing stuff through a completely religious view, through their radical Islamic worldview. So that being said, the pragmatist is ready to quit and throw in the towel. The religious side is not. And that's what you're getting. You're getting the Islamist radical religion response of we aren't going to surrender, we're never going to stop, right? Because in their mind, that's like betraying their God, their religion, and they're not going to do that. That's why they have to die. That's why you have to wipe them all out. And that's why this religion is evil. It just is. And if Trump, there is no, and Hegseth said it, and I don't know if I'll play it because it's well, maybe I will. It's old news, but maybe you guys haven't caught it. Hegseth said it, no mercy, no quarter. And that is the only approach once you've gone down this road. And now Trump has to balance time, and he has to balance lives. He cannot get pulled into a war of attrition. He did set the date of 4 to 5 weeks. If you look at what the United States and Israel has done in the first 2 weeks of this war, you have to ask yourself, how can Iran sustain itself for the next 2 weeks? It can't. It can't. It cannot. There's no way that regime can survive another 2 weeks of this, or even 3 weeks of this. And to be honest with you, if Trump wanted to, he could probably go 8 weeks. Because the thing is he basically has 8 to 12 weeks before he has to go to Congress to get an extension or to get a declaration of war. And I maintain it. Like, you could say we're technically at war with Iran. Well, not technically at war. We are fighting Iran. There is a conflict, right? It's a conflict, but we haven't, quote unquote, officially declared war. Like, the declaration of war has to come from Congress. He's using emergency war powers that are granted to him as the President of the United States to strike countries on behalf of America to protect our national security. That's what he's using. But we are not in a war posture as a country, and that has to be voted on and declared by Congress because the people have to vote for that, right? If that happens, then you have the full might of, and here's the thing that people don't understand too. We have not unleashed the full might of the United States military. We've only unleashed Space Force, the Navy, and the Air Force. Okay? That's not Marines. That's not Spec Ops on the ground. That's not the Army. All right? We have not unleashed the full capacity of the United States military. And we've, just with the allies in Israel, our Navy and Air Force assets, in 2 weeks, we took a top military, a country with a top military, or you should say the top military in the Middle East, and we destroyed it all. It's all gone. Okay? And that's with really like 40% of our military. Really? Right? So when you combine obviously with Israel, maybe double that, right? That kind of power. But the point is like we haven't even gone into what we could do if America goes into a wartime posture, into a declarative war posture. Then everything is on the table, right? Everything's on the table. And so when people say war, they're saying war because obviously people are dying, but honestly, it's really strikes. This is strikes, right? This isn't boots on the ground. This isn't conventional warfare. This isn't us being declarative. This is America and Israel hitting with precision strikes, which pretty much every president has done for the last like 40 years or 30 years, however long. But the point is that we aren't in that. And so I make that distinction because I don't think that's really not being distinct, right? That hasn't really been said. A lot of in the media they use the word war. The president uses the words war, and I think he does it, and they do it because it's number one. I think the media does it because the media is trying to be anything they can to make Trump look bad. I think the president uses it because he's hyperbolic, but he's also trying to get people to understand, kind of what's at stake here. But my point is, he has a limited amount of time. He can only use certain parts of the military, right? Because politically he can't, because obviously that would destroy his entire presidency. The point is that Iran at this point in time is trying to do the only thing it can, which is psychological warfare. And here's where I have a really big problem. I want you guys to think about Iraq, okay? Think about Iraq. Now, remember, if you guys are around, we had an opportunity to take out bin Laden. And we didn't do it, okay? And then 9/11 happened. And then we went into Iraq, okay? And we made a lot of mistakes with Iraq. We stayed too long, etc., etc. But it's almost like history is repeating itself, except for now Trump is the president that decided to actually do something before something else happened, right? And I don't want to say it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't, because I don't believe that. I believe that this is a redo, but I also believe that at the end of the day, we will be victorious. We will wipe this enemy off the face of the earth, and the world will be better for it. In every single poll in America, says that. Like, majority of Americans are behind the president with this regime because of who this regime is and what it's done to its own people. And it is completely antithetical to the American way of life. We do not like to see authoritarian regimes kill their own people because they can't protest, because as Americans, we have that inalienable right that we as American citizens are born into. And to see people get gunned down or murdered because they say they don't like something we can't live with that, right? And I think that's one of the big reasons why most Americans are behind Trump doing what he's doing. Now, the grain of salt, obviously, like I said, I keep saying it over and over again, is the time. Okay, it's the timing, and I decided not to stream on Friday because I'm getting to a point now where I feel like I have to dedicate it. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5:30, I'm going to be here, point blank, period. But Friday, it felt more like kind of just a repeat of Wednesday. But then I thought about it. I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm getting to a point now that I'm covering this. I'm going to obligate myself to cover this and to be one of the voices that speaks on this, because wherever you sit with Trump, okay, I want you to set how you feel about Trump aside. And I want you to think about your own country. Okay? I want you to think about, regardless if you're American or you're from a European country or somewhere else around the world, I want you to think about your country for a second. I want you to imagine you're the president. Right? I want you to imagine you're the president of your country or of the United States. Okay? And it's your job, it's your duty to protect all of the people in your country. Just like if you were a dad, and you had a wife and children, your responsibility is to protect your wife and your children from any imminent threat, right? And when you think about it in those terms and you extrapolate it out and you look at the options on the table, you can understand why this option was chosen, all right? That being said, where do we go from here? Why is CNN and MS Now having interviews with Iranian ambassadors, the Iranian regime, and playing Iranian TV propaganda on these networks? If you thought back to Iraq like I asked you to, could you ever imagine CNN or MSNBC or ABC playing propaganda from Saddam Hussein or bin Laden? Like, think about that. Right? The people that we're fighting, would they ever have time on the airwaves to broadcast to Americans their side of the thing? And I can hear it now. Well, no, because, 9/11, they hit us first, and, we were responding, and it's a completely different thing. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's the same exact thing. The scale's just different. And you could argue 9/11 was an event that happened in one day, and a lot of people died, and it was horrific. Okay? We're not taking away from that whatsoever. That's not what I'm saying. Okay? I've got people in my church who lost people, all right, in 9/11. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is I want you to think about, we have been, quote unquote, you want to say at war, but we've been being attacked by Iran, America, since the late 70s. They have had a declarative war posture to the West, particularly America, because we represent the West, right? We're the most powerful country, most powerful Western country, so we represent the West. And Israel, they want us destroyed. They are actively doing everything in their power to destroy us and to project power against us. Okay? And that has happened since their revolution. That was the whole point. And like I said in my last stream last week about we played the clip about the lion, right? And so the whole point I'm making is that the continued decade after decade of shame, attacks, murders, Iran being responsible for the IED and for all of the terrorism in Iraq against our soldiers, and all the proxies in the world, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Hamas against Israel and against America, and also their Middle Eastern, their Gulf neighbors. This is much bigger than just Trump deciding to go to war or deciding to attack Iran. It's much bigger even with the nuclear weapon. I mean, that's really the Casus Belli, right, is the nuclear weapon. And I played it on the last stream about Steve Witkoff saying, when we came to negotiations, the first thing they said to us was, we have enough material to make 13 nuclear warheads. Right? And they weren't going to give that up. Like that alone is a reason to do what we've done. We don't need more reasons. My point being is, I don't even really believe that's really like the true reason here. The true reason here is the plans that the administration have for the Middle East and for the peace at large cannot be done with Iran on the board. Okay? They can't be. That's why today it was said, Trump said, hey, the Saudi prince, calling him every day, talking to him every day, telling him what's going on. He encourages me to keep going, and they're about to break, right? The Gulf states want Iran gone. This is the first president in American history that has the relationships with these Gulf states on a peer-to-peer mutual respect level. It started in his first term with the Abraham Accords, which, if you want to be honest, he could have got the Nobel Peace Prize for that alone. But I don't want to get into that. But the foundation was laid there, and those relationships didn't stop when he was out of office. That's the thing about Trump, is he never stopped. He never stopped cultivating those relationships. He never stopped. He assumed he was going to be president. And when you assume you're going to be president, you're doing everything as if you're going to be president. And that's what he did. Okay? And so this is a relationship that has been built over 10 years. This plan, the reason why when he got elected, you see all this activity in the last, 15 months? I mean, it's really the most activity I've seen a president really do in my lifetime in 15 months. He's been planning this for, 7 years. Since maybe even longer than that, maybe even 10 years, because really his first term was interrupted by COVID. Right? And so all of that now we know. All of that we can see that's going on right now on the table. And the other major thing that I have to talk about is the Save America Act. All right? And I don't know. I think it's important. I think it's important that America does these things, because I think what happens is in life it's hard to sometimes achieve things at a high level when you really just don't know what that level is. You can't see it, right? And then you see it and you're like, oh man, like I want to do that, or I want to be that, or I want to do something even greater than that. But the point is like once you see that and you know it's attainable, you can do it. And I'm not trying to be cocky about America or anything like that and say that's what it is, but I think sometimes you just need someone to kind of give you that example. And so I think the Save America Act, which is a piece of legislation in America that it will require anybody who wants to vote in our elections has to have an ID. They have to have voter registration ID. Just like you would have an ID to buy alcohol or cigarettes or drive a car, you're going to have ID to register to vote. So in America, we have something called Real ID, which I have, which a lot of Americans have, which basically allows you not to have to carry a passport, right? You pay a little bit extra money, you do the verifications just in your verified, just like you were to get your passport. It gives you get a little stamp on your driver's license, and it's a Real ID. And now you don't need that. As long as you have that, you can travel intercontinental in America. It basically it would serve as my registration ID. I would show that and I'd be able to vote. And most Americans have that or are getting that because they also made it to where you need to have Real ID in order to travel within the continental United States, right? Or your passport. Because it's about, they want to make sure that the citizens and who's traveling on these planes are known, right? And it's a big deal. This Save America Act is a big deal in America because it's a power dynamic, okay? The Democrats have for the longest time, man, I got a major bite on my face. The Democrats for the longest time have used illegal immigration as a means to harvest votes. That's a fact. That's why they opened the border. That's why you have all of those laws in all the blue states, especially California, where there's no voter ID, required. And they know that they know the fraud's going on, but they depend on the fraud to win. Because, quite frankly, no one would vote for their crazy. They won't vote for their crazy policies. No one has. No one will. Right? You see, here's the thing. The Democrats didn't win in 2020 because they were good. They didn't win in 2020 because they had good policies. They didn't win in 2020 because they were going to innovate or do something great for the people. They didn't campaign on that. They campaigned on one thing. We'll get rid of Trump. And the only reason that was effective is because for 4 years, they lied. Their lies took root. Remember? The Steele dossier, right? Russian collusion, right? He's a felon because they tried to indict. Oh, that was after. But the fact is they had all these lies and insinuations. They tried to impeach him, and it was nonstop, lie after lie, smear after smear for 4 years. And their propaganda, and they still had to cheat. Okay? And honestly, all you have to do is look at the voting numbers for 2024 and look at the voter numbers for 2020, and you'll know that they cheated. Okay? They just did what Democrats normally do that they're not going to be able to do once the SAFE Act happens and passes. What's the point? The point is the Democrats don't win because they're good at their job. They don't win because they're competent lawmakers or governors or leaders. They win off fear. That's how they win. They make you afraid of the possibilities instead of what real leaders do, which is inspire you from or for possibilities, right? Real leaders inspire you about what the possibilities of the future could bring, which motivates you, which brings you up. Whereas fear-mongering makes you afraid of the future and brings you down, and then it makes you dependent. Because now you're looking for leaders to protect you and to tell you what to do and how to act. Not empower you and send you on your way to go do. That's the big difference between Trump and the opposing party, is because Trump, at the end of the day, is a CEO of a successful business, and he's a builder. He's used to being around blue-collar workers. He's used to deadlines. He's used to building things, seeing things constructed. He's used to being on top of things and asking people, why isn't this done? What's going on? Activity. We need to go. We need to move. Under budget and under the timeline, right? That's what he's used to doing every single day. And that's what he brings to the presidency. That's why he's so efficient, right? And he's rare in business because obviously he's a billionaire, and what he has done and created is in rarefied air in business. But to be able to translate that into politics, I don't think anyone has ever done that before. I'm pretty sure no one's done that before. Especially not in the way that he's been able to do it, where being basically, he's not only a political phenomenon, but he's someone who, the amount of control that he has over his party as a party boss, in of itself, just that, can be studied. I don't think we've ever seen a political figure that has had that kind of control over their own base and political party. And to be honest with you, I don't think we're going to see something like that again. And if we do, I mean, think about that. He has to be way more charisma. Like, to see that kind of a person would be insane. Okay? So that being said, he's had this plan, right? And he's hit the ground running. And I believe, like I said in my last stream, he knew eventually this day was going to come. He knew it. And they planned for it. Which is why when you watch these news conferences and you watch, we listen to Pete Hegseth and you see the headlines, and he addressed it in not his last one, but I think the one before that, where he talks about how, the CNN acts as if they didn't plan for the Strait of Hormuz to be attacked or anything like that. Like, we have known that Iran could do something to the Strait of Hormuz since the 70s. We have had a plan for this for decades. if you see the speed and the accuracy and the intelligence that we had on Iran when we hit them, and how fast we killed their leader and their leadership and took out their capabilities to hit us and to manufacture their arms forever, if you can see that for 2 weeks we've decimated and destroyed their air force, their navy, and their entire militia, why would you think that they didn't anticipate or plan for problems in the Hormuz Strait? And see, listen, I'm gonna play some of it because I think there's parts of it that actually back up what I've been saying, and I think you're gonna hear it. Not think, but you're gonna hear it from Trump's own mouth because I remembered it. I have an uncanny way of retaining information, remembering it, and connecting it. It's my gift. But I said in my other stream, Trump has said in the past, and I think it was NATO. It wasn't Davos. It was NATO, about how he felt that we would be there for NATO, but he wouldn't necessarily believe NATO would be there for us. I mentioned that because that's in his thinking. And like I said before in my other stream, he asked Keir Starmer and the UK to use those bases as a convenience, but it was actually a loyalty test. It was to see whether or not the UK was with him or not. Either Keir Starmer was with him or not. And he found out that he was not. And I am telling you, just like I said last time, it has changed the relationship with the United States and the UK on a serious level. And it will not change unless the next prime minister does some serious damage control, and I would even say concessions, to restore the relationship. Because you can chop it up however you want. It was a betrayal. The UK had one small thing that they were asked to do: allow the United States to fuel their planes. And because Keir Starmer is a coward and a wolf, and she's not even a wolf. He's not a wolf. He's not even a sheep. He's just an impotent. I don't want to do ad hominems. I want to be honest. He is someone who should never have been in a leadership position. He is not a leader. He's a lawyer. He has no business being in a leadership position, let alone a leader of a country, let alone the leader of the number one, supposedly the number one ally to the United States. That has quickly now taken the place of Israel. Israel is now our number one ally. They've always been a top 3 ally. But really, it was the UK that was the number one ally. And Keir Starmer has single-handedly destroyed that relationship. And I'm going to prove it to you guys. That's point number one. That's the big thing here. Now, I'm saying this because Trump is doing it again. He's doing it again. And there's someone, and how is he doing it? He's doing it by calling on countries to come send their warships to the Strait of Hormuz and help its policing. And I know people are saying, well, why would he do that? Like, can't America, I thought America is taking care of it. I thought America, sealed this down. I thought America, said that they took everything out. I hear this stuff, and I'm just thinking to myself, you can't be that dumb. But people are. The news media is. I hear these questions from the media, and hold on, my bad. Hold on. I hear these questions from the media, and I'm like, you can't be that dumb. It's a loyalty test. I keep saying I'm going to play the clip. I am going to play the clip, but I want to preface all this to get all my thoughts out. It's a loyalty test. Listen, America, I'm pretty sure that if you combined all the militaries of the world, matter of fact, that'd be cool. I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna go to ChatGPT right now. I'm gonna ask this. If you combined all the military of the Western world against the United States, how does it compare? I need to prove a point. The reason I'm doing this is because, yeah, NATO and its allies. Exactly. Yep. Perfect. The reason I'm doing this is because there's another clip too. There's a couple clips I'm going to play. NATO secretary. I just seen it. And I'll play that right now actually, because this is going to kind of come to my point. Is this history? Yeah. This is the one I'm going to play. And let me just make sure. Wait, did I play it on? Sorry guys, hold on a second. I think it's on my... I think it's on a different social media. Hopefully this works. Bear with me, guys. What's chat say? Okay, so combined Western militaries minus the U.S. would have enough mass to be a formidable coalition, and they could exceed U.S. in personnel, ships, and dispersed regional forces, but the U.S. would likely still hold the edge in overall warfighting quality, global reach, logistics, naval aviation, joint force integration. In a long war, geography and industry would matter a lot in a fight. So my point is, if you took all of the combined armies of NATO and its allies and you juxtaposed it to America, America would still come out on top. And that being said, we don't need militarily NATO. We don't need them unless it became so big that, like, you know, fight with maybe combined force of China and Russia or something like that, and maybe even then we might not. But the whole point is, existentially, we are joined at the hip, right? Because we share the values and we have the relationships. But I'm just saying, strictly for military purposes, we don't need them. Can we police the Strait of Hormuz by ourselves? Yes. Then why is Trump asking for people to come help him? Loyalty test. Loyalty test. Hold on. Oh, here it is. Yes. Oh. All right. Trust this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saved it on here. Saved. And okay, that's one, and that's two. Bro. Can't remember. Sorry, guys. I probably should.
The Democrats have been.
Probably should have bookmarked it. Nope. Okay, so it was. Maybe I could just find it. Let me try to find it, guys. Go back to. Let me go to reacting. Let me see if I can find it. See if I can find this. This is. Who is the secretary? What's his name? Mark Rudd. Okay. Oh, maybe was it? No, it wasn't on X. About
my relationship with the president, hey, listen, if somebody is doing good stuff, and President Trump is doing a lot of good stuff, I believe. I know I'm irritating a lot of you again, but I think so. Because, as I said also in Davos, the 2% reached by all NATO countries now at the end of 2025 would never, ever, ever have happened without Trump. Do you really think that Spain and Italy and Belgium and Canada would have decided to move from 1.5 to 2%? Italy spending 10 billion more now on defense at the beginning of the year without President Trump? No way, it would not have happened. And do you really think that in The Hague we would have come to the 5% commitment without President Trump? No way. So when President Trump is doing good stuff, I will praise him. And I don't mind him publishing text messages. And if anyone thinks here, again, that the European Union or Europe as a whole can defend itself without the US, keep on dreaming. You can't. We can't. We need each other. And why do we need each other? I tell you. First of all, because also the US needs NATO. For the US to stay safe, and by the way, Arctic region is evidence here, they need a secure Arctic, they need a secure Euro-Atlantic, and they also need a secure Europe. So the US has every interest in NATO as much as Canada and the European NATO allies. But for Europe, if you really want to go it alone, and those of you who are planning for that, forget that you can ever get there with 5%. It will be 10%. You have to build up your own nuclear capability. That costs billions and billions of euros. You will lose then, in that scenario, you would lose the ultimate guarantor of our freedom, which is the US nuclear umbrella. So, hey, good luck. My relationship with the...
So that right there, okay? Trump doesn't need, the United States doesn't need NATO for their military prowess. He said, and we'll go there right now. I'm not gonna even repeat myself. I've said it already like 4 times. So we'll go there right now. Where's my history?
Thank you very much. Please. Companies are going in, and they will actually number one woman in the world, then Angela Merkel. Angela, to the best of our knowledge, all of their mine-laying ships, now they can put them on other types of ships, I guess, and drop them in. But we don't know that any have even been dropped in. We're not sure that any have been. That's a big negative for them if they do it. It's a form of suicide. But we don't know that they have dropped any in. But we've hit all 30 of their ships and destroyed them. They're all at the bottom of the sea. We strongly encourage other nations whose economies depend on the Strait far more than ours. You know, we get less than 1% of our oil from the Strait, and some countries get much more. Japan gets 95%. China gets 90%. Many of the Europeans get quite a bit. South Korea gets 35%. So we want them to come and help us with the Strait. We have it in very good shape. The countries, I said, we've already taken care of Iran, but now, because of the fact that literally a single terrorist can put something in the water or shoot something or shoot a missile, a small missile, and it's fairly close range because it is a tight area, and which is one of the reasons they've always used that as a weapon. Iran has always used that as an economic weapon, and it's not going to be able to be used very long. Numerous countries have told me they're on the way, Some are very enthusiastic about it, and some aren't. Some are countries that we've helped for many, many years. We've protected them from horrible outside sources, and they weren't that enthusiastic. And the level of enthusiasm matters to me. We have some countries where we have 45,000 soldiers, great soldiers, protecting them from harm's way. And we have done a great job. And when we want to know, do you have any minesweepers? Well, would rather not get involved, sir. I said, for 40 years we're protecting you, and you don't want to get involved in something that is very minor, very few shots going to be taken.
I got to say this right now, because I'll play it, but I have to say this right now. This is exactly what makes me upset as an American. Okay? For the majority of NATO, the Americans have been footing the bill. The American taxpayer. People in America who go to work every day, who pay their taxes, that money has been going to the defense of NATO and its allies. So when you hear this BS about the Netherlands or Denmark or people like being able to have these wonderful, calm, happy lives and how they have all this stuff that's perfect over there and their healthcare is all this other stuff, a lot of people don't understand that they don't spend any money on defense. We do. We pay for the security of NATO and its allies. Just like Mark Rutte said, the benefit of the American nuclear umbrella. Not only do we have the most nuclear capability in the world as a deterrent, we have the strongest, the biggest, and the most powerful Army, Navy, Air Force, Special Forces on the planet. That's our deterrent. And so when we are paying the bill for their defense, for all of NATO and its allies' defense, when we are the deterrent, when we are the ones holding the line, and then we decide to go to war, or we decide that we're going to have a conflict, or we decide that we're going to have an issue with someone, and you don't help us, you refuse. And we're not talking about sending people to their deaths. We're not talking about entering into a major war. But even if we were, the answer should always be yes. But we're not even asking for that. You can't send minesweepers. You can't let us fuel the planes. You won't send your warships to patrol in Hormuz to secure your own oil? It's almost as if this was the complaint. This is why Trump, and this is why Mark Rutte said, do you think that Spain of all people would agree to go from 1.5 to 2 if it wasn't Donald Trump? Do you think that we would go from 2 to 5%? If it wasn't for another president like Donald Trump? Why? Because he understands leverage. And he understands math. And the fact of the matter is that America, you know what? Screw it. I think Mark's right. If you guys aren't gonna step up and support America when we need you, we're not gonna support you. That's not happening. And I would sleep like a baby. I wouldn't care. I'm so sick and tired of countries taking and not giving. And then for some reason thinking because we do have the most powerful army on earth and because we do have a fantastic economy and we have all this stuff. You know what? It also pisses me off too. Do you think that this shit just comes out of the air? Do you think that this just happens? A lot of countries complain about how fast America is and how, we are always, we don't, all the rest of the world is very calm and chill and everything, except for when shit really happens and hits the door, then who are you coming to? Who are you going to call? That's the thing that really irritates me. What is it going to take for these Europeans to get their head out of their ass? You went through 2 world wars. I'm watching a documentary about the years right after Hitler and the Germans go down. And what Poland and Germany and France and what it all looked like. When Truman went to Warsaw, I mean, it was leveled. Right? When he went to go meet after they voted out, I can't even remember his name because no one really cares to remember his name. When they voted out Churchill. Right? They voted out Churchill. FDR dies, and so Truman takes his place, and the new guy from England and Truman meets Stalin. Right? And right outside of that little town right outside of I think Warsaw, and they have that meeting. And it's leveled. And what I didn't know, I knew about the airlift. I knew about the airlift to Berlin and obviously the wall going up and all that stuff. But what I didn't know is that I didn't know about the Marshall Plan. Or maybe I did and I forgot. The Marshall Plan was America extending millions of credit to Europe to rebuild. We sent machinery, we sent raw goods, we sent materials. We literally rebuilt Europe. America did. If it wasn't for America, Europe would be still impoverished. Because the war, World War II, was, it is the most devastating war on the planet ever. Unless you lived through it, unless you have grandparents who have lived through it and you listened, unless you've researched it, unless you really know your history and you see the images and you understand, you had lines of women holding pails and they were passing pails to one another to get all the rubble out. You had a bunch of orphans and kids scrounging for scraps to eat. There's no food. There's no running water. They were doing bread rations. You could hardly eat. People were dying. Thousands of people were dying from starvation. They had to put the Jews who were dispersed. This is how sad this is, guys. The Jews that were in the camps from the Nazis, they had to return back to the camps because there was no other place to go. Do you know how horrific that is? And they died. A lot of them died there from starvation too. It was horrific. And you could say, well, Europe has been an ally for a long time, and maybe Europe has paid its dues back or whatever. I don't know. I don't even think so. I don't think so because our benevolence didn't end there. Our benevolence didn't end there. We created NATO through our own ingenuity, through our own people's ingenuity, our own hard work, our own abilities. We became a superpower. We maintained that superpower, and we invested heavily into the defense of our military because we didn't forget Pearl Harbor. We didn't forget it. With Europe, they were so anti-war because of what they'd gone through, and they made the agreement with the United States. They let the United States take the lead. And they kind of just rode the coattails. And so, they're wary. We get it. We get it. You're wary. We came in. Now we have this superpower that's going to protect us. And you got lackadaisical. And then there's a threat. And if there's a threat, you're going to rely on America to protect you. Right? But you don't pay into the program. You stop paying it for decades. You just it's like you what's a good analogy? It's like you just show up to dinner and accept and just automatically we're going to pick up the bill. Every day. So when America needs you, and America has a conflict, and like here's the thing, you gotta look at the what I think has happened here, and this is why it's going to hurt, I think, in the long run for Europe. What has happened here is I think there's two things that are happening at once. One is it's gotten personal. Somehow, some way, foreign policy has gotten personal, not political. You're having a problem with the person, but you have to understand is the person in the seat represents the people. You may not like Trump's personality, but you have to understand something very, very clear. Trump was duly elected by the majority of the citizens of the United States of America. It wasn't just that he won an election. He won the election every way you could win the election. His party won all seats of power. They won the House, they won the Senate, and they won the presidency. He won all 7 swing states. And a swing state means it could go to either one. He won them all. He's the first Republican since Reagan, or Bush, I can't remember, to win the popular vote. The 2024 election broke records. And somehow, some way, the allies have allowed this to kind of get personal and make this about Trump. They're not viewing it long term. And I said this in my last stream. For some weird reason, Trump is able to do this to his opponents. They cannot think long term. It's something about it. It makes people think, not think. And so what am I going on? I'm going on about this because this is what's being played right now. This is the geopolitics that is playing right now. This is the rearranging of the chess pieces right now. It's not that he's just going on and attacking Iran. He's using Iran to flush out. I don't want to say flush out. He's using Iran to also figure out who his enemies really are and who his allies really are. That's the whole reason for the Strait of Hormuz ask. That's the whole reason for the bases ask. That's the whole reason for seeing who will come to the aid of America. Because he's about to say it, if he hasn't already said it. He has this thing in his head where he believes that NATO won't show up for us when push comes to shove. Air Style, what are you? Hold on, let me bring this guy up. I'm going to try to do this. Yeah. Can I do this? I'm going to try. I see Asmund do it all the time. And you gotta bear with me, guys. I'm newer to Twitch. All right, let me see if I can. I don't want to go to his profile. I don't want to do that. I'm gonna go to the chat. All right. Well, maybe I can't. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't know. But I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out later. Anyways, it says, what are you going on about? You're the world police because you want to be the world police. Well, I'm not the world police. I don't know what that means. I'm not the world police. Why can't I see this? Because this needs to go up here. No. America is not the world police because we want to be the world police. It's a long story. Okay? You have isolationism, which is the belief that the world, you should just stick to your own, not worry about the world. You have globalism, which you believe there are no such thing as borders. There is no such thing as peoples. It's all one world, all one everything, right? And then you have kind of a pseudo of both, right? Trump is not an isolationist. He's not a globalist. He recognizes that America has a part to play in the world, but at that same time, he's not going to compromise the objectives of America for any other country. That's what America First is. It's not America onlyism. It's not American isolationism. It's that America will be preeminent in every possible way because we believe in being number one. Now, being the world police was from other presidents who were globalists. George Bush Sr. had a famous speech where he said, in the 90s, welcome to the New World Order. And he was a globalist. And he led the way in America becoming the world police and a globalism, and it was on a managed decline. And every single subsequent president, his son, Obama, they were part of it. Clinton was part of it. Until Donald Trump. And I'm not talking about being the world's police. I'm talking about friends and enemies. If we're allies and I go to war, you should be coming to my aid if I ask. Especially if I'm the one paying for your defense. Because you have a vested interest in me winning. Not only that, if we're talking about militarily, what else are you good for? So I pay for your defense, you don't come to my aid, and we trade. So now you're just a trading partner. And if you're just a trading partner, why are you in NATO? Aha, and who built the nukes for you? What's the point of that question? What's the point of that question? What are you talking about? Are you trying to imply that nukes were built by someone outside of the United States? Let's just think through that. Why would another country build or have access to United States nuclear warheads? Apparently he's never heard of the Manhattan Project. No, that's not true. And that's stupid.
Get involved. I just want the fake news media and everybody else to remember that was said, because when I've been a big critic of all of the protecting of countries, because I know that we'll protect them. And if we ever needed help, they won't be there for us. I've just known that for a long period of time.
I've known that for a long period of time. He said it, NATO, years ago. Or maybe it was this year he repeated it. But this is in his head. And to be honest with you, I think he's kind of paranoid of it. It's kind of a thing that and look at Mike's face. Look at Mike's face. Look at Susie's face.
Like I knew about the Strait, that it would be a weapon.
This goes back to what I was saying before. Dumb CNN, dumb MSN Now saying that they didn't plan for the Strait of Hormuz. Listen, yes, he did. And anyone who knows anything about the Middle East knows that too.
Which I predicted a long time ago, predicted all of this stuff. You guys were very generous in that. I predicted all of it. I predicted Osama bin Laden would knock out the World Trade Center. I made that prediction a year before he did it. I said, you better get him. He's a bad guy. I watched him be interviewed one time, and I said, that's a bad guy. You better get him. 1 year before, exactly. I wrote it in a book. You can even check. About a year before the World Trade Center then came down, President Clinton actually had a shot at him, and he didn't take it. Unfortunately,
This is what I'm talking about, and I feel vindicated. Not vindicated, but I feel like my where my head's at with this is right. You know, my timeline might be off with the surrender, but I know the surrender is coming. I do. I feel the surrender is coming, and I think Iran's going to get pressured by the Gulf states to surrender. I do. Trump doesn't think the NATO allies are going to help America when we need them. He doesn't have any confidence in the UK. He doesn't have any confidence really in NATO. And he wants to see who he can trust. That is why he's asking for warships to come into the Strait of Hormuz. He already mentioned Japan, which gets 95% of its oil from the Strait of Hormuz. So he wants to see Japan in there. He has a really good relationship with the Prime Minister over there. But this is a loyalty test. He called out South Korea. I heard France is sending 10 warships to the Strait. I don't know that for certain. I heard that, but I haven't seen other things that corroborate that. The UK is who he was talking about with the minesweepers, where he said, "Oh, I don't want to get involved." That is the Keir Starmer. 100% that's Keir Starmer. So he already can't trust the UK.
Blaming him for that, but he didn't take it. And
the other point too is him saying that. Why did he say that about Bill Clinton? He said, "I'm not blaming him, but he had a shot and he didn't take it." Because Trump is the one who did take the shot. Right? Like I said before, it's a do-over. Clinton could have taken out Osama bin Laden, and he doesn't. Okay? He doesn't do it. If he would have, 9/11 doesn't happen. Okay? Now, Trump is in a similar position. If he doesn't take out the Ayatollah, my bad guys. If he doesn't take back the Ayatollah, okay, he doesn't take his shot, and then 2 years from now, they have a nuclear weapon and they use it on Israel, or they use it on a Gulf state, or they use it on, God forbid, a NATO ally in Europe, or somehow, some way, they're able to hit us, an eastern seaboard or western seaboard country or a city. That's what we're talking about here. That's how serious of a conflict this is.
Always use that as a weapon. Iran has always used that as an economic.
Talking about straight.
I said, for 40 years we're protecting you, and you don't want to get involved. And we're very generous in that. I predicted all of it. I predicted for the World Trade Center then came down. President of Venezuela, who's been great, but literally needed 95% of their energy or their oil economies depend on the Strait for blood. I mean, these people literally need it. 95% of their energy or their oil comes out of the Strait, and they should be in here very happily helping us. And it's incredible. We have such we're number one in oil by double now.
All right, so I just saw this. I want to see what this says.
We are ready to ensure safe passage through the Straits of Hormuz diplomatically. However, there will be no military participation.
That's Poland, which is a wow. That's wow. I wasn't expecting that from Poland.
Germany was one of several
Oh, it's
US...
Germany. Okay. I saw this, guys, on the bottom, and I thought this was Poland. This is Germany. Germany makes more sense. Because I look at Germany, is it Friedrich Merz? I don't know if that's his name. I think that's the chancellor's name. Who I like. I like him. I think he seems like a good guy. He seems smart. He seems very, very smart. But I think that he is someone who is cozying up to Trump, but is not a true believer. And this exposes that. If he was a true believer, he would have said... And here's the thing, guys. You can send military aid as a sign of goodwill. It doesn't need to be a lot of assets. It doesn't have to be major assets. But just by you participating, it signals to Trump that he can count on you and he can trust you. And he thrives, or not thrives, but he does everything on trust and loyalty. So once he calculates, okay, I thought this guy was good. I can only trust him this far. Now I know. That's how it is. He might appear publicly to be nice, but I'm telling you right now, he's not going to cross that line. He made that mistake in his first term, and it got him to lose the second election. He'll never make that mistake. He'll never miscalculate that way again.
allies that said
I should have saw the flag, and I missed the flag.
on Monday it had no immediate plans to send ships to unblock the Strait of Hormuz. That's after President Donald Trump asked for military support to keep the vital waterway open.
Some are very enthusiastic about it, and some aren't.
Trump's request follows Iran's response to US-Israeli attacks. The country used drones, missiles and mines to effectively close a channel which normally sees a fifth of global oil.
That's a lie. They didn't close it. They don't have any mines. And they have 5% or 4% of their drones, and I think less than that of their missiles.
Oil and liquefied natural gas pass through. Germany, Spain and Italy were among allies that ruled out participating in any mission in the Gulf.
Wait, Germany, Spain, and who?
In the Gulf, and ruled out participating in liquefied natural gas pass through. Germany, Spain and Italy were among
Germany, which was a coin flip. Spain, we knew. Italy is saying no. Wow.
allies that ruled out participating in any mission in the Gulf, at least for now. They cited a desire to avoid escalating conflict or taking action that could imply they would join.
This to me is the dumbest stance possible. This is so stupid. Trump said it last week. You can't to UK. You can't join the war after we've won. They're going to make us do all the heavy lifting, and then they're going to come in and benefit. And I'm telling you right now, it's not happening. I'm telling you right now, guys, it's not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening. You're not going to join the conflict. You're not going to join the conflict after it's already over. If we're in a bar fight and you're supposed to be my friends backing me up and you leave me to just fight everybody else and I got to fight everybody and then you're going to join after I just knocked out the last guy, like you were there the whole time, like you was helping me the whole time. I'm going to get some new friends. Trump voicing his concerns about how NATO's not going to be there for America when we need them. And honestly, this is a conflict. This is not even a war. It's such a low risk conflict. Like, there's obviously going to always be risk in any kind of military conflict. That's not what I'm trying to say. But on the scale of World War to what we're doing, which is strikes, it's on the lower end of the risk. Especially right now, where 97% of Iran's military is decimated and gone. And their ability to even make more stuff is gone. So it doesn't really get less risky than where it is now. And so for them to say we're not going to send any military help after and the president's not going to ask again. And I promise you, when this is said and done, and America has won, and Iran has bent the knee, all the NATO allies that said no, get back of the line. You're not going to even be able, don't even bother calling the man. Italy, that's disgusting. Maloney, what are you doing? You can't send a ship, 2 ships, 3 ships, Dr. Seuss? Huh? Spain, we already know. The crazy leftist over there, TDS, he's tearing his own country apart. We knew we weren't gonna. He doesn't even pay his NATO bill. Germany, little disappointed. I can kind of understand. You don't really feel ready. You don't really have that much of a military anyway. You're trying to just get it up. You don't want to lose. I get it. Maybe too big of a risk. Trump might give you a pass. Italy, nah, son, nah. You've been pro-conservative. You've been pro-Trump. You've been pro-America. And when the money put your money where your mouth is, you don't want to pay the bill. I'm sorry. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Joining it, Berlin's defence minister Boris Pistorius said, quote, "This is not our war."
What does the world expect?
We expect you, our ally, to have our back. This is I'm telling you guys, this is trauma scars. This is not World War III. It's not World War II. Iran has no allies. No one is coming to help Iran. What are you scared of? It's not a war, guys. It's a conflict that is nearly over. Send your ships to the Strait. The amount of firepower that would be there is going to deter Iran. And if they do hit one of your warships, they're going to get destroyed. Iran. Where in the world do you guys get to have zero risk and all the reward? In what world? We have an ocean that separates America from Europe. We have 2. If we didn't do anything, we didn't do this at all, and we let Iran build up their drone capabilities and their missile capabilities, and Iran gets a nuke, who's it gonna hit? Let's say they get 13 nukes. They hit Israel. Who else are they going to hit? Europe. All the quote-unquote Christian non-Muslim countries is getting it. Germany wasn't going to do nothing about it. Spain isn't going to do anything about it. Italy isn't going to do anything about it.
What does Donald Trump expect from, let's say, a handful or 2 handfuls of European frigates in the Strait?
Look at this guy. Look at this guy. I'm going to replay it.
Quote, "This is not our war."
What does the world expect? What does Donald Trump expect from, let's say, a handful or 2 handfuls of European frigates in the Strait of Hormuz that the powerful American Navy cannot accomplish there alone?
This is a fool. This is a political fool. This is I'm so glad that I spent all that time before I played this clip building the case, going through it, guys, and showing you exactly what my mind's at and how I'm seeing it, because this is a prime example. Now you understand what I'm seeing. Now you understand. And people say Donald Trump is an idiot. They think he's dumb. They think he's a fool. They think he's weird. They think he's crazy. They think he's flying by the seat of his pants. Everything is strategic. Everything is strategic. It's pre-planned, simulated. I'm telling you. He fell into another Trump trap. What did he say? What's a handful of European frigates really going to do? How's it really going to help that the United States Navy can't handle? The reason why he thinks like this is because for 50 years, 70 years, however long NATO has, they've gotten accustomed from America being responsible for their security and them having to pay and do nothing. They're so stuck on the mindset that America is our defense. We shouldn't have to contribute anything because we're in NATO. No. There's no more free lunch. It's over. You don't work, you don't eat. You don't contribute, you don't get protected. You don't show up, we're not showing up for you. That is over, bro. You want me to answer your question, dumbass? Here's the answer. Number 1, it would show solidarity. It would show that you're a real ally and that you show up when your ally needs something because they asked you to. Number 2, it would show gratitude. Gratitude for what, Kyle? Gratitude that we've been covering your ass for the last 70 some odd years, however long NATO's been, and you haven't been paying crap. And let's not get it twisted, Germany. The reason we have a NATO is because your country decided to try to take over all of Europe, and you got stomped. And the only reason you're in NATO is because Stalin tried to take over Germany. We weren't having that. And instead of letting you die, because that's what Stalin was doing, cut off everything from the Eastern Bloc to the Western Bloc and let you starve out, we threw food to you and we had a Marshall Plan and we rebuilt you. And so we turned an enemy into an ally. And you became into NATO to stop Russian aggression. Thus the Cold War happens. And now it's not Axis versus Allies, it's democracy versus communism. And again, America saved your guys' ass in the Cold War. How? Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. It was America fighting communism through multiple administrations from 1947 all the way until the fall of the USSR in 92 or 93 or whatever it was. What's a handful of frigates going to do? It's not going to do nothing. It'll contribute, but it's the fact that you'd be willing to do it. It's the fact that you would be willing to show up. It's the fact that you would have the gesture to say, thank you, yes, we want to help and we want to contribute and we want to be involved. The camaraderie, the brotherhood, the solidarity, the whole entire point of being an ally. That is the point. Who's going to show up for America and who's not? It doesn't matter. We know that you... Listen, guys. Listen. How is this not... How does this not cross your mind as a world leader or your advisors? How can you ask that question? That's like us going to war for real, us asking you for help, and you saying no. What's our army going to do compared to the United States military army? What kind of answer is that? What kind of question is that? All you have done is prove that you're not only not good in statescraft, that you're a fool militarily, and that you're a fool politically. And that you're so stuck on the old way of doing things that you can't adapt. And now you're on the other side of the board in Trump's war room that says can't be trusted.
Other countries like Britain and Denmark said they would consider ways they might help, but also emphasised a need to de-escalate and avoid getting dragged into the war.
That's political speak for we don't want to get involved, but we don't want to say it flat out right because we're smarter than Germany.
Meanwhile, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said on Monday that the Strait of Hormuz is not closed to everyone, quote, only to our enemies.
No one takes him seriously. Who cares what he says? He is a paper tiger. He doesn't speak for anything. This is Iran, guys. That's what Iran looks like. Okay? He doesn't have a military. Who cares what he says? It means nothing.
He added that the US-Israeli war on Iran must come to an end in a way that it will not be repeated again.
Yeah, it's called surrender. And if you don't surrender, you're going to die too. You're either going to die or you're going to be arrested. That's what's going to happen.
NATO countries, several of whom have been at the sharp end of criticism from Trump in recent months, are wary of angering the White House. Some signalled willingness to help find a solution, even if plans remain vague for now. Trump said that the NATO alliance faced a, quote, very bad future if its members failed to help.
He's going to get rid of NATO. He's going to get rid of it. What's the point? What's the point? You pay millions every year to prop up an alliance that doesn't help America when we need it? What is the point? Well, in other news, where are my, let me go to my bad. Let me go to, I want to talk about the SAVE Act. We're going to go to our boy, Steve Turley. Now, the SAVE Act, like I said before, I wanted to talk about Iran. I'm done. I'm done with Iran, done with NATO. I'm off my high horse with that. We'll see what happens in the coming days. But the SAVE Act is a major thing. And it's not just a major thing for America. It's a major thing for the world. Because just in my past other streams, I've talked about how Trump has, the MAGA movement has kind of exported out to the world where there's a lot of nationalist frameworks and a lot of nationalist pride coming from other countries, Italy, Japan, Korea, Germany, right? This kind of nationalism movement that's, saying you can be proud of who you are, and a more conservative movement that's kind of been happening. And along with that is, getting rid of mass migration, rejecting the globalism and the globalist system, right? Having borders, having strong borders, deporting people that shouldn't be there, illegal immigrants that shouldn't be in your country, getting them out of your country. I know Britain's trying to go through that now. So there is this this wave that's happening, and along with that, part of that, majorly in America, is the SAVE Act, Save America Act, and it has to pass because Democrats rely heavily on undocumented illegal immigrants voting in their elections in a lot of blue cities. And they use those votes, obviously, to gain seats. And what will happen here is when this passes, because it will pass, and you have to have voter registration in order to vote, you are going to see a precipitous drop in Democrat victories. It will be a major, major fall. And I predict that California will get a Republican. And the Republicans will win handedly for the near future. As long as they can keep what they got going and they don't mess up. But, it's politics. They're bound to mess up. But the point is you have strong borders, you have deportation of illegal immigrants, and you have voter registration ID. All three of these things are 80, 20, 90, 10 issues. The overwhelming majority of Americans want the border closed. They don't want illegal immigrants in this country. Two, close to 75 to 80% support the mass migrations, right? They might not like how it's handled, but they support it, right? Overwhelming majority. Save America Act. The Save America Act, the voter registration ID, overwhelmingly, I think it's something like 70%. So I want to start with this, and we'll get into it.
Cold. They claim they had the votes, that the filibuster was an impenetrable wall, that Republicans were divided, disorganized, headed for humiliation on the Senate floor. Well, this week, that Democrat wall is being tested like never before, and there are very clear signs that it's starting to crack. And if it falls, it won't be just a legislative victory. It'll be one of the most consequential election integrity wins in American history. Stick to the very end of this video because we're going to break down exactly how Republicans found the path to passing this bill and why Democrat senators are all suddenly beginning to panic. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. All right, so this is it, gang. This is the week that the SAVE Act comes up for a vote, and every single Democrat who steps in front of that camera to block proof of citizenship voting is handing Republicans a campaign ad they'll run on repeat straight through November. The pressure's real. The House ultimatum is real. Senator Mike Lee says he's optimistic. He doesn't use that word optimistic in vain unless something has genuinely moved, which it has. We'll find out in a moment. But he's reporting the SAVE Act has turned a corner. Let's start with the basics here of what Save America Act actually does, because the legacy media is doing everything they possibly can to muddy the waters on this one, as they always do, right? Always in favor of Democrats and to the disadvantage of Republicans. But regardless, the bill, bottom line, requires proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections. That's it. That is literally it. It requires proof of citizenship to vote, to register to vote in federal elections, and it requires states to remove non-citizens from voter rolls. It mandates that federal forms, including the motor voter registration form used by the DMV, require documentary proof of citizenship.
So for all of you non-U.S. based people, in America, we have 50 states. Each state is sovereign. They have their own elections and their own government system that is identical basically to the federal system. And so you have a judiciary branch, which is the Supreme Court. You have the executive branch, which is the governor essentially. And then you have the state representative, which is the House, right? And then there's obviously state senators as well. So it's set up just like the federal government system is. What the Save America Act will do is it'll make it so that citizens have to prove their citizenship in order to be able to register to vote for the federal elections. So federal judges, federal seats in the House, Senate, and obviously the presidency. This does not count for the states, because each state has their own laws. So California, they have no registration. So you can, if you're in California, you can vote, and no one's going to ask for your ID or nothing like that. But if you want to vote in the federal election, you have to have an ID. And so this, in theory, would limit the amount of votes that politicians running for federal office are going to have.
So the same ID requirements that you need to buy alcohol or board a plane or open a bank account, that will now be applied when registering to vote. So you have to have a real ID compliant driver's license or a U.S. birth certificate presented alongside a government issued photo ID. You have to have naturalization certificate. You have to have a U.S. passport. Whatever it is, it's got to be an official document proving you are a citizen to vote in order to register to vote in a federal election. That's it. Bottom line, that's the SAVE Act. And the very fact that that requirement is controversial, the very fact that that requirement may not pass the Senate tells you everything you need to know about how insane the Democrats are and how dysfunctional and broken the Senate has become. Oh, and I should mention, too, it also makes it a federal crime to count ballots from non-citizens in federal elections. So it holds election officers accountable as well. Now,
I didn't know that part. I didn't know that they were going to make it so that you could charge people with a federal crime if they did that. So that's fantastic.
Simply put, the SAVE Act is one of the most popular.
So 71% of Americans, including 69% of independents and 50% of Democrats, support the Save America Act. That we do everything possible to stop voter fraud and illegal immigrants from voting. 33% Democrat, 72% GOP, 55% independent. that eligible citizens aren't denied the ability to vote. 67% Dem, 28% GOP, 45% independent. Support, 50% Dems, 91% GOP, 69% independents, and then who oppose, 50% Dems, 9% GOP, 31 independents. Which of the following is more important? A, that we do everything possible to stop voter fraud and illegal immigrants from voting, or B, that eligible citizens aren't denied the ability to vote. It's more important to stop. Almost a supermajority by 6 points. That we stop illegal immigrants from voting. And then, do you support or oppose the proposed Save America Act that would require proof of citizenship to register to vote, require voter ID, require states to remove non-citizens from their voting rolls, and require states to share unredacted voting rolls with the Department of Homeland Security, so you can't cheat and you can't. Harvard Capps Harris poll: 71% of Americans. It's an issue the Democrats cannot win because the majority of the country want it.
Pieces of legislation imaginable. 71% of Americans support this bill, according to the latest Harvard Capps Harris poll. And this is after a 3-month legacy media blitzkrieg to try to convince people it's somehow controversial. Even Chuck Schumer inadvertently handed Republicans the best soundbite in the entire debate when he warned that millions of voters would be removed from the rolls if the bill were passed. And the MAGA movement basically said, yes, Chuck, exactly. Thank you. That's precisely the point. The bill passed the House back on February 5th, sponsored by Representative Chip Roy, a Texas representative, and it sailed through on a party line vote. Again, Mike Johnson gets it done. You got to hand it to him.
He does.
But the Senate has been a different story. Majority Leader John Thune has been wrestling with a very real procedural problem. Republicans hold 53 seats. Democrats are unanimously opposed, for the exception of John Fetterman. And you need 60 votes to break a filibuster. Thune's instinct was to bring the bill to the floor for a show vote, put Democrats on record, let them filibuster it, and then use that as campaign ammunition for November.
Right.
But the House GOP wasn't having any of it. Up to 50 House Republicans, led by Representative Brandon Gill and Representative Anna Paulina Luna, they declared that they would vote against every single Senate-passed bill, including the big, beautiful reconciliation bill, until the Save America Act actually passed into law. Luna warned Thune directly, those are your options. That's it.
Well, I'm glad she did that, too. I'm glad they both did that, because Thune would have sat on his hands. Right? And there's a lot of criticism for Thune. And he's a pragmatist, right? He's a politician. He's not a true believer in Trump. He knows which way the wind is blowing, and he's doing what he needs to do to survive. At the same time, there's some right criticism there with Thune. You know, and the point I'm trying to make is, as long as he gets it done, right? As long as he gets it done, that's all that matters. But he has to get it done. Failure is not an option on this. It's not.
You got to pass this thing. So that's not a bluff. I mean, when 70% of voters are behind a bill, you stand up for it.
You stand up for it.
And that's exactly, to their credit, what House Republicans are doing here. Yeah. They are demanding that Thune find a way of getting this bill to President Trump's desk. And it looks like they've done just that. Here is the great Louisiana Senator John Kennedy.
So to get to 60, though, is the thought that this would be a reconciliation bill, so you don't have to get to the 60? Is there a single Democrat? Are there several Democrats who would vote with you on the save?
I would do it through reconciliation. We could short circuit all of this, but I'm in a minority. Mm-hmm. I have chased Senator Thune, my good friend, like he stole Thanksgiving, to try to get him to do a reconciliation. This would be perfect for reconciliation.
So this would be perfect for a reconciliation bill. But again, as Kennedy noted there, they have yet to convince enough Republican senators to get on board with that. Now, there is talk about passing what's called a talking filibuster. So that's where Democrat senators would have to actually continually give speeches in order to avoid a cloture vote that would force a vote on the bill. It's been confirmed that upwards of 30 Senate Republicans are all for implementing a talking filibuster. But Thune's not sold on that. He's calling it way too complicated and risky. You're going to have to change the rules of the chamber, and then when you change rules, the Democrats are able to bring up all of these countermeasures and counter bills and so forth to make the whole process very, very messy, very, very painful. But as it turns out, Utah Senator Mike Lee looks like he may have found the perfect compromise. He's come up with a hybrid approach that promises to accomplish precisely what over 70% of voters want to see: voter ID and the restoration of election. And definitely one you want to show up for. Click on that link below.
Okay, important update on the Save America Act and the effort to get it passed. Look, I am guardedly optimistic. We've turned kind of a corner. Over the last few days, there's been some uncertainty about exactly what procedure we will be and will not be using. In the end, we've been working closely with Leader Thune and his staff, and they've been great to work with. What we're coming up with is something that I think is best described as a hybrid version of the talking filibuster. But look, let's not get mired down in nomenclature. What matters far more than what we call it is what we do with it. We're going to bring it to the floor. We're going to debate it for an extended period of time before filing cloture. And in my view, at least, I don't want to speak for anyone else, this bill needs to remain on the Senate floor before we file cloture on the bill for as long as it takes to get it done. Now, the fact that Leader Thune and his office have been willing to work with us on this, and they appear open to a variation of that, is a good thing. So let's keep up the momentum. Let's encourage them to continue to do this. Let's put the bill on the floor. Let's make those who want to filibuster speak and keep it on there as long as possible. Thanks so much.
All right, so that's Utah Senator Mike Lee, and as you just heard there, he's guardedly optimistic, were his words, saying that the SAVE Act has turned a corner and that he and the majority leader, John Thune, have been quietly working together on what he describes as a hybrid version of the talking filibuster. So a traditional talking filibuster means you force Democrats to physically hold the floor, speaking continuously without a break, to block the bill. And that requires changing Senate rules, which Thune has been reluctant to do because he's worried his own conference can't hold together under the unlimited amendment barrage from Democrats. But a hybrid approach means the bill lands on the Senate floor for an extended debate before cloture is even filed, giving Democrats, or keeping Democrats, I should say, in the hot seat publicly, forcing them to explain their opposition to a bill supported by 71% of the American people, day after day after day, with cameras rolling, heading into a midterm election. Yep. Now, Thune confirmed this week he is pushing forward with exactly this kind of extended floor process. And he made clear this is not a courtesy vote. It's a pressure campaign. The longer this sits on the Senate floor, the harder it becomes for red state Democrats like Jon Ossoff in Georgia, or Democrats vying for the open seat in Michigan, to keep voting to block a bill that their own constituents overwhelmingly support. Now, here's what makes this movement so pivotal. Because what's happening here is that it looks like this hybrid version of the talking filibuster that'll force the Democrats to speak for a prolonged period of time without having to change Senate rules is getting combined then with Senator John Kennedy's proposal to put it up for a vote via reconciliation. So Kennedy's point is simple, right? If the hybrid floor strategy doesn't work, reconciliation is sitting right there as the nuclear option. And there are enough members who want this bill passed that the pressure to use every available tool is only going to end up growing with. Yeah. And the Democrats know it. Senate Democrat leader Schumer is privately warning his caucus that this is not going to be a clean bill, that the procedural landscape is shifting, that the House ultimatum is real, and that at least a handful of red state Democrats are going to face an almost impossible choice between keeping their base happy and explaining to their constituents why they blocked the citizenship verification bill
Which half of them
just months before a midterm election.
Yep.
So here's the bottom line. The Save America Act is heading to the Senate floor this week for what could be the most consequential legislative showdown of 2026. The path is not guaranteed. Thune still has reservations. The parliamentarian question on reconciliation is unresolved. She might strike it down. And it will take sustained House pressure and Senate unity to push it through. But Mike Lee's optimism is not a PR move. He is the lead sponsor. He's been inside these negotiations. And when he says the bill has turned a corner, that means something real has shifted inside the conference. Senator Kennedy found a way. The House held the line. And now the entire weight of the question falls on a handful of Democrat senators who are going to have to look their constituents in the eye and explain why they think non-citizens should be on American voter rolls.
So it comes down to it, guys, is will the Democrats crack? Will there be enough pressure? Now, if that poll holds true, let's say half, right? Half the constituents. That's a split in the party. Okay, for GOP, you're talking about 90%, 9 out of 10. That's about as solid as you can get. When it comes to 50%, half your party split down the middle. I mean, that's a death sentence for politicians. You can't have half your party split on an issue, and it is. It's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? So you can't look at your party. You got to look at the independents, your swing voters, right? And the majority of the swing voters. And I'm sorry, guys, I wasn't sharing my screen when he threw out that poll, and I'm going to put it up just so we can have it up while I'm talking. But when you're talking about 71% support it, and you're talking 50%. Oppose it, 50% support it over here for Democrats, 50-50. Then you have independents, you have 69% support it, 31% oppose it. I mean, that's lights out, man. And so if you're having to stay on the floor while the cameras are rolling, explaining to America why you think illegal immigrants should be able to vote, it is going to be a death sentence to your career. One of the greatest lines, and I'm telling you right now, they're going to play it over and over for five key moments from Trump's State of the Union speech.
I will soon be presenting Connor with our highest civilian honor, which we will be given and which has been given to many athletes over the years. But when I say many, not too many, like 12, it's called the highest civilian honor in our country, the President. These powerful, country safe to ban large Wall Street investment firms from buying. Americans are also concerned that energy demands, we are in negotiations with.
No. Wall Street Journal. See, who's a leftist? That's not even, that's not what it is. Where is the one we all know? We all
Members
know.
of Congress and my fellow Americans, our nation is back. Bigger, better, richer. American government is to protect American
Right here. This is the one. This is the one.
In recorded history, this is the biggest decline. Think of it, in recorded history, the lowest number in over 125 years. Year 1900. In fact, substantially before my wonderful father, I had a wonderful father, Fred, before he was born. Substantially before he was born. That's a long time ago. One of the great things about the State of the Union.
He's sleeping.
Is how it gives America.
And look at American flag, Ukraine flag.
Americans the chance to see clearly what their representatives really believe. So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
Right there. There it is. There it is. This is why the GOP is going to win the midterms. This, combined with whatever the Democrat senators are going to say on that floor to try to convince America that illegal immigrants should vote in their elections. This right here, all these Democrats sitting down and all of the GOP standing up. This is why. They will have nobody but themselves to blame.
Tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. Stand up if you believe in this fundamental truth. That's what he said. And do you know why they're not standing? Because they hate Trump. Yeah. That's one reason. They hate America. They hate America. How could you say that? They hate America as America is. These leftists have destroyed the Democrat Party. They are radical in ideology. Don't forget the Biden years, guys. Don't forget. These are the people that do not believe that American citizens have sovereignty. They don't believe that America is a good place. They believe it needs to be torn down, and they believe that anybody should be able to come here and extract all its resources. This, excuse me, this is the 30% that believe that illegal immigrants should be able to vote in elections because that's how they all got there. Well, I'm out of steam, guys. I'm keeping a close eye on Iran. I see the bigger picture. I see the moves being taken by the Trump administration. It is strategic. It is planned. It is strategic. It is planned. They have a plan. They know what they're doing. Now, will it shake out? Will they be able to accomplish the objective before time runs out? Will there be something that wasn't planned for that comes up? I don't know. But I'm rooting for America, as I will always root for America. And I hope that America comes out on top sooner than later, because I'm personally, I'd love to see this get done before. I don't know if you can totally take these people out without getting boots on the ground. I don't know. I think you're going to have to start hunting them. But if we are able to, it'll be short work. I personally do not believe Iran can survive another the regime cannot survive another 2 weeks of what's going on. I don't believe it. I think it's every day now it's just going to get worse and worse for them, and they will give up 100%. I think it'll be within the next week. SAVE Act, going to keep a close eye on that. That will fundamentally change America, and by doing so, will fundamentally change the world. And hopefully it'll give people of other countries some balls, like the UK, to push back against your totalitarian government, because they are totally destroying your free speech, destroying your ability to express yourself. They're suppressing you, and it's becoming a total... I can't believe what I'm seeing over there and what I'm hearing over there. It's disgusting. And the people need to figure that out, and they need to push back on their government, and they need to take it back. Like that needs to get corrected. You shouldn't be going to jail for things you're saying online. That's nuts. And that's from Britain, and we get our heritage, we get our traditions from Britain, and so to see that happening over there is that's awful, man. It's awful. But anyways, I hope you guys learned some stuff. I hope you guys got some information. I'll be back Wednesday at 5:30, unless something crazy happens tomorrow and I have to get on stream, but I'll put it on my Twitter. But otherwise, you guys have a God blessed day, night, and I'll take care, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Later.